Today's topic is all about what do you do when you're absolutely swamped with work? What if you are feeling overwhelmed and then you don't get what you need to get done? And this is a resilience reset, meaning that it's no matter how your day is going, if it's a great day, fantastic. We're going to just lean into that and celebrate. And if you're having like a frustrating day or you're feeling overwhelmed, we are going to reset that and get you some positive juju on the go. So thank you for being here. Awesome to have you. Be sure to say hello in the chat box. Let me know you're here. And wherever you're coming from, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Awesome. So let's get to it. That feeling of overwhelm, I get it. And what I used to feel, before I really worked into this resilience work and everything, and I truly believe is like that sensation of overwhelm, that sensation of frustration, all of it is manufactured by our patterns. And when I dove into my resilience work, what I realized was that it's not the big stuff. Like, we know, like, we're going this direction, but it's it's not the macro that's really the problem and actually steals the joy from our lives. It's the micro. It's the day-to-day when you show up and get stressed or feel overwhelmed. That's when we're not living our best life. That's when we are letting outside circumstances steal our joy and our productivity. And so that's how it fits into resilience. But let's talk about what you do, because it's easy for me to say, well, it's the patterns of how you're approaching your work that are causing the overwhelm, which ultimately causes the lack of productivity. And what are we going to do about it? Well, let's figure that out. I'm going to get my little Post-it up. Un momento. There we go. Okay. First thing we need to do is situational awareness. I want you to get so crystal clear on what you have to get done. And here's why this matters. Because you may say to me, well, I already know what I have to get done because it's on a list, or I have it in my head, or it's just my job and I just do the same things, or whatever the case may be. But we want to get so crystal clear on not only what you need to get done, but what you're actually doing. Because there could be stuff that you're doing that you shouldn't be doing, that you could be delegating, that is somebody else's job, or that isn't really a priority, really isn't that important. And so let's get really clear. And so I'm going to challenge you the same way I challenged one of my clients. I said, for a week, I want you to write down everything you do, every distraction, every phone call, every, email, not every email, but you did email, and not something fancy, just put it on a little, keep a piece of paper beside you and scribble, right? Did this, was working on this and got a phone call. So took the call, right? And figure that out. So then we can look at it and figure out what we're going to do with it. He called me at the end of day one. He's like, oh, now I know where all my time is going. Right? And I remember when I went through this exercise, I was like, okay, I am so sick of my days just getting away on me, right? At this point, I had become more able-bodied. I wasn't so much caught up in the pain. And, which was actually such a blessing in so many ways, because I had to get so much done in such a short period of time, right? I had no choice but to be highly, highly, highly productive. And then as I figured out my pain and I started to make friends with it, and it didn't take, as much energy away from me, I had more capacity over the course of my day. And I ultimately ended up not getting as much done. Not interesting. So one very frustrating day, I remember I was like, okay, what did I do today? And it's harder to do this exercise thinking back. It's a lot easier to capture what you're doing in real time. Okay. So what I did was I sat down, and I think there were 15 things I'd done that day that I knew that I could remember. And, this is an old story, and I think it was in my last resilience book, but May not have been. I don't think it's in the new one. Anyway, doesn't matter. And like half of them I shouldn't have been doing, right? Just low priority, whatever. Then there was, or I think, I don't remember the numbers, but it was like half of them I shouldn't be doing. 2 of them were awesome, and the rest I should have delegated to somebody else. And that night I ended up getting an assistant who I could delegate off to, and that just help me focus on what it is. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're swamped with work, I want you to get really clear on what the work is, because our brains have a way of playing a little trick on us. So if we think we have a lot to do, and we know we have a project that needs to get done, and we can make this story that thing is going to take us 2 or 3 hours. Sorry, buddy, is my purse in the way? Why is my purse there? Hey, it's not the right spot, apparently. It can make us feel like, oh, that's going to take me a huge amount of time. And then when you actually get into it, turns out it doesn't take you that long. It takes you a long time because you procrastinated on it for 2 weeks. Right? Anybody else? Let me know. I tell you, I've done that. I still do it. Still do. But then when you actually get into it, you're like, that didn't take that long. Didn't take as long. So just in my stream consciousness thinking here. So we're going to figure out what it is you're doing. Then we're going to figure out what you have to get done and actually look at that and estimate how long it's going to take you. Okay. So the 5 minutes it takes you to go through your task circle and go, okay, that's a 15-minute job. That's a 3-hour job. That's a this, that's a that. Will help you go, okay, if I just did that and I didn't take any breaks and I didn't have any distractions and I didn't get into multitasking and I just got into flow and I only did that, how many hours of work is it? Right now we got to build in the breaks, we got to build in the, the rhythm and all of that. But let's actually figure out what you need to get done, because that brain, like I said, is really good at exaggerating things that we procrastinated on or that we think are bigger than they actually are. I remember I did a virtual workshop for a group and got a call from someone who, and this happens actually quite a bit in this circumstance, she had a back room that she walked through every day that, years earlier they'd moved in and they hadn't actually ever organized it. And so every day it was just this little, right? Like just hitting, like making her feel like she was failing, making her feel like she wasn't successful. Like it was every time she walked by it for years, she went, oh, there's that thing I got to do. There's that thing I got to do. So classic procrastination on steroids. She heard me speak. We were talking about the ice cube that became the snowman. If you don't know that, then you got to go back and watch some of my other videos. And she's like, you know what? I walked by that house or that room and I said, you know what? This is an ice cube. I got to melt it. And she said that weekend I did it and it was done. And she said it barely took me any time at all, like a few hours. And she'd spent 4 years procrastinating on it. Think about that. And we've all done it, by the way. I think, at least I'm going to speak for myself. I've done it. Yeah. All right, Dave. Hi, Dave. Nice to see you here. And he's saying, I love creating a do not do task list. I love it. Oh gosh. Yes. Okay. You know what? We should make a big sticky, do not do these things, right? And put it up. I think that would be brilliant for many of my clients. So I'm going to quote you on that. A do not do task list. I like that. And when you look at that list of what you are actually doing, you may surprise yourself. You're probably getting more done than you think you are, even if you're feeling emotional. And here's the thing. If there's a 10 on the list, and oh my gosh, I mean, there's mine today, right? Just because it's on your list doesn't mean it needs to get done now. Like, I think part of the problem with the emotion, when I'm talking to my clients, it's like, look, we need to emotionally detach from your to-do list Because if you are in a position where your mood is determined by how well you're accomplishing your tasks, you are going to be always at risk for feeling pulled in a million directions, and it's going to steal joy from your life. What I'm hoping for you is that we can get you to a point where you feel like confident and okay and just in charge of your list instead of the list being in charge of you. Right? It's just so freeing when you emotionally detach from the things you need to get done. And the beauty of the list is once it's on a piece of paper or in your online system, it's the list's responsibility to remember it. It's not your brain's responsibility to remember it. Think about that. So people put it on a list and they're like, well, yeah, but I got all this stuff to do. And I'm like, but you're only doing one thing right now. So all of that other stuff doesn't require any part of our brain, right? Look at me, halving my brain and putting it over there. I don't think that's how it works, but I'll go with it. Put the other half over there. Like we don't need, and the emotion, we don't need the emotion on it either. We have to trust the list to hold it so that we can focus in on one task at a time. Like, people who multitask, like we all think we do it right really well, and we don't, or maybe we don't think we do it well. I know I don't, but here's what will happen in my life. I'll start writing an email, and then I'm like, oh, I forgot to call so-and-so. And then I'll call them, and then I'll be like, oh, I forgot to do the book order. Oh, I forgot to do, whatever. And then what I do is I'm in the email and I'm like, oh, I forgot to call this person. Put it in the task circle, come back to the email. Oh, I forgot to order books. Put it in the task circle. And so your brain is going to be like, there are different things that trigger, oh, I got to do this, I got to do this. We got to get that trigger, recognize it, put it out on the paper so it's tracked. And then go back to the thing you were already working on to get it done. Because if you have a whole bunch of half-started efforts, nothing is going to get really, really, really well done. Okay? And that feeds. But this is the emotional discipline. This is the mental discipline. It takes time. We've got to, have a process for you. And it all starts with situational awareness, understanding what you actually need to get done, what you are accomplishing, and what is missing the ball. Adding in Dave's don't do list, add that in, what's on the list. And then we want to go self-awareness, right? How much of this am I making more complicated by things like the procrastination or the worrying about it when it's already on the list and it's not the time to think about it, right? And then we want to go into solution activation. And so a couple of things that have really helped me when I have a lot of work to do and I start to feel overwhelmed, which for me can be a trigger for just shutting down and going, I don't want to do any of it. I don't want to do any of it. When there's too much, is to think in a few different ways. And of course, I talk about this in my book. Take back your weekends, stress less, do more, and be happier. Put that right where it needs to be so you can see it. Is think in terms of area of responsibility. So are you someone like me that has to do your marketing, your sales, your client delivery, your admin, except for what's delegated, like all of it, right? So they're all different hats. And you think about, if you're wearing a hat, you only get to wear one at a time. It could look pretty silly if you wore 5 hats at once, which is what happens when we switch between all of those different pieces of the puzzle, right? And if your business, if your career, if your job is having many areas of responsibility, it's a little like puzzle Jenga game of blocked focus time that we got to figure out in your calendar. And so what is the number one priority that you're working on? What hat are you choosing to focus on at that moment? And if it's the parenting hat and you're with your kids, then you know what? You don't get to think about anything else, right? It's just you're 100% focused. If you're wearing your marketing hat, then dive into that, pull her down tight and, put the blinders on. If you are doing your sales hat, sales, right? And then choose when you want to take it off. And this for me has been pivotal. And when I can, help my clients do that, like I love it, because the thing is like, okay, what hat are you wearing right now? And when we think about our to-do list, which I call a task circle, as you probably know if you've read my book, is we think in area of responsibility, I just find it so empowering. It's like, that's the hat I'm choosing to wear right now. And so all the other hats don't matter, because our overwhelm when there's too much to do comes from thinking of it all at one time. And you can't do it all at one time. You just can't. So instead, we've got to figure out which one am I going to wear right now, focus in, do that. So that has been really helpful for me. And then the other thing that I find really helpful if you're feeling overwhelmed by having too much to do is to break down the bigger projects into smaller projects. So this is more the solution activation. And actually, the solution activation is so simple. So simple. There are so many possibilities and ways that you can effectively and efficiently deal with your overload of work. That is the easy part. The hard part is the situational awareness and the self-awareness. What are the patterns that are making getting that much workload just a little bit harder than it needs to be? Oh, that's great. I'm on a call, but I am trying to jump on to learn. You're awesome, Greg. Thanks for doing that. I know you always try to get in at 3:15 and be a part of this. So you're one of our regulars. So that makes me so happy. Anyway, I think that hopefully there's enough in there to help you if you're swamped with work. Actually, no, one last thing I want to say about this. The workload is not going to change. And so if you are striving or complaining or getting caught up in the fact that there's so much workload, you're actually stealing your capacity a little bit each day from actually getting the workload done. Because all of that wasted energy is just not helping you be at your optimal zone. And it's not going to end. That's why I don't like the word to-do list. I call it a task circle, because I believe if we're waiting for us to get to this like elusive end of what we are trying to achieve, we are actually chasing, like the carrot's always going to move, right? So we're chasing the carrot and it just keeps getting pushed. That's our to-do list. So there's no ever a basis for satisfaction. There's no like actually having it done moment where we go, unless you create smaller lists, which is a great tactic. Sometimes do that. Actually not sometimes. Every night, like even this morning, I had several meetings and a couple calls, and what I did, I was like, okay, what on this big thing needs to get done right now, and I got that done, like just boom, 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 and totally focus so that I could go into my meetings and not be feeling like, oh, I've got all this stuff. What are all this stuff hanging over my head? That just takes you out of the present moment. And when we're worried about what's on the list in the future moment, that's killing our joy right now. And all of this relates to our resilience. You wonder how? Well, for me, resilience is the act of processing anything that's going to take you away from your sweet spot of performance and productivity and profitability. And so when we're swamped with work and that leads to a feeling of overwhelm, it actually clouds our judgment, our ability to problem solve, to be objective about what's going on, to do our best work. And so my hope with this thinking and my problem solving framework of situational awareness, self-awareness, and then solution activation is I believe that any part of the human experience when it comes to our productivity and our objectivity and our joy, well, I'm not gonna say any, there's I mean, if you've heard me speak, we go much deeper than this, right? But adversities are a different story. But when it comes to tasks and obstacles, the more efficiently we can get them done, the more effectively we can get them done, the sooner we can move on to the next thing. And accumulated, what that does is if we do the tasks and obstacles exceptionally well and as quickly as possible without distraction and just, with our focused being in flow, then what happens is we have capacity and day left over to do the big stuff. Whether it's take time off, guilt-free, whether it's trying to achieve or problem solve something that's legitimate, or it's taking on a new client and now you have time for it because that work was done really well. Think about that. It's awesome. In my mind, it's awesome because I get fired up about this stuff, as you know. Anyhow, all right, we've hit over the 20-minute mark, so I am going to I'm gonna sign off for today. Thank you for being here. This has been the Resilience Reset, and until next time, may you stress less, do more, and be happier. I was gonna say, may you be happier. That's where I started with, but no, we got to stress less, do more, and be happier. So I will see you on Monday. Have the best weekend. I hope you take it back for whatever you want to do. Okay, bye.